We're here with Mary. Mary, you've got quite a story about the making of a family that you've got now two beautiful grandchildren from. Why don't we rewind it a little bit? And your son, who was in the military, was unfortunately had some trauma.
And two tours in Afghanistan, one in Iraq.
And went down a bad path with drugs. But the Lord rescued him. Why don't we, for those that really need a touch on a healing, let's talk about how your son, even in jail, was set free.
I actually was just leaving for my first missions trip when he got arrested, and I thanked God that he was going to be safe. And I prayed that God would bring someone to him in jail, not knowing that what God was bringing was himself. Jesus came on a white horse, and that was a life-changing thing for my son. For the next 2 weeks, he didn't call anybody on the telephone. He didn't watch any TV. He just spent time seeking the Lord.
And the Lord met him.
The Lord met him, and the Lord did amazing things.
Set him free from...
He set him free from meth. He's not done meth in 10 years now.
And in that 10 years, you mentioned a story about he just wanted to
be a good dad.
Be a good dad, and the Lord had a special person for him. If you can tell that story.
Well, what happened was my son had decided that he did not want to date. He only wanted to be a good dad. He was still married, but they were separated because they no longer had anything in common that she was still using. And so he went to work for some friends that he had worked for in the past, and unbeknown to him, their daughter had come to know the Lord and had asked God to intercede in her life that she was not going to date until God brought somebody to her door. 3 years after she prayed that, she asked God, is there somebody out there? And he brought my son. But at that time, my son was still married. And so she didn't even see that as a possibility. And 4 years later, she lived in Texas. Her parents were moving to Texas, asked my son to go with them to fix a house for their grandparents, to do remodeling there. And while he was there, her grandfather turned 80. And on his 80th birthday, his wish for his daughter, or granddaughter, was met. Grandma asked my son Lauren to sit next to Carolina on a love seat, and that night they saw fireworks. They both felt it. They both knew it. And the next day my son called me and said, I'm in love. And I said, this can't be. You're married. There's nothing in this story that makes any sense. And he said, she loves the Lord. Well, if she loved the Lord, she wouldn't seek out a man who was married.
But your husband had been separated for many, 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 many years.
Huh?
The marriage...
They had been separated, yes.
Yeah,
but what happened was he said, I'm calling Chris and asking her if there's any chance we could ever get back together. And so in front of Carolina, he called his ex-wife and said, is there any chance that we could ever get back together? And she said, absolutely not. At that point, him and Carolina started a relationship. And when they got ready to get married, the church wouldn't marry them because they were both living in my house. She had moved back here from Texas. God had a good plan for them. And they wanted to be married in the church. They wanted to be married in God's eyes, but that wasn't a possibility. But someone else was willing to marry them right outside my house.
But the dress story, as far as with
the dress, she wanted to not spend a lot of money on a wedding, but on the the relationship with God. And so she went looking for a dress, and when she went to Grace Place, a secondhand store in our town, she asked if they ever get wedding dresses in, and they said, not very often. She said, do you have any now? And she said, well, we have one, but it comes with stipulations. She said, what size is a dress? And Brenda said, let me go back and get it. So she went back and got this box, big gold box that said wedding dress on it, and on the top was a message. It said, this dress is not to be bought, sold, traded, or displayed, but when someone comes in and asks for it, it's to be given. That day she put that dress on, no alterations needed, and that was her wedding dress. Then she needed a veil. God met every need she had. The shoes for her dress, she got that day at Grace Place. She got the veil for $1 online, shipped free the next day. She wanted a prayer shawl. She got that for $20, shipped the next day. And we put this wedding together in 4 days. And not only did they see fireworks the day that they knew they were in love, but they got married on 4th of July with 4 days to plan a wedding. And in that 4 days, people came alongside them and got the house ready, got the night before the wedding, 5 couples came and got all the tables set up and everything done. Only a dozen white roses were bought for flowers. Her bouquet and all the flowers for the wedding were from 2 yards, mine and somebody else's. And she had the most beautiful bouquet for her wedding.
Now, they were told that they couldn't have children.
They were told they couldn't have children.
In 8 years, they've been married, and
they have 2 sons. Misha just turned 7 today, and Aaron is 5. He'll be 6 in December. And that's a cool story, too. They told him that they couldn't have kids, and when she came home and she went upstairs and cried, and I went up in that bedroom and I said, we are not going to believe this. God has a child for you, and we're not going to listen to any doctor that would say anything different. So we're just believing for a baby for you, and that you have a womb that's going to carry a child. And I said, I don't want you going back to that doctor ever again. And 2 weeks later, Carolina came to me and said, God told me to go back to that doctor and ask her to work with me. And I said, if God's calling you to go work with her, I'm not getting in your way. She called that doctor and said, would you work with me for 6 months? She said, that would be pointless. And she said, I'm trying different things, just work with me for 6 months, please. She found out that the day before Thanksgiving, she found out she was pregnant. She did 3 tests because she couldn't believe the first 2, and then drove to the doctor's office, said, I want blood work done right now. And on Thanksgiving Day, she was able to put on Facebook that she was pregnant.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So as far as for anyone out there believing that they can have a child, even though the doctors are saying it's impossible, you can say with certainty that all things are possible.
All things are possible. And she went back to that doctor, and it was important that she went back to that doctor because she went back after she got pregnant and she said, please don't ever take another woman's hope away. If you have hope, you have nothing. If you don't have hope, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
So I just thank God that I have hope, and so does my family.
Well, thank you for sharing that story, Mary.
Yeah.
God bless.
Yep.